Emma was never the type to crave attention. She lived a quiet life in a small town, working at a local bakery, smiling at neighbors, and going home to her little apartment with her rescue cat. To everyone around her, Emma was just a simple woman, trying to make ends meet. But behind her gentle smile was a heart that had been bruised by one man, her ex, Daniel. When they first met, Daniel seemed charming and supportive. He promised her love, a future, and all the things she thought she needed to feel whole. But when their relationship fell apart, he didn't just leave her, he decided to ruin her. It started with whispers. Then the lies spread like wildfire. Daniel told anyone who would listen that Emma was unstable, that she cheated on him, that she'd done things she never even dreamed of doing. He made up cruel stories and posted nasty rumors online. Emma felt her whole world shrink as neighbors she'd known for years turned away. She lost friends, she lost customers at work, and worst of all, she started to doubt herself. How could one man's lies destroy everything she'd built? But Emma wasn't as weak as Daniel thought. One rainy night, sitting at her kitchen table with tear-stained cheeks, she made a choice. She wouldn't let him keep dragging her name through the mud. She gathered every scrap of proof she could find, every text, every email, every witness willing to speak the truth. She filed a lawsuit for defamation, shocking Daniel and everyone who thought she'd just stay quiet forever. What Emma didn't know was that taking him to court would uncover secrets even darker than his lies, and that fighting back would cost her more than she ever imagined. But would it be worth it in the end? Emma wasn't ready for how ugly things would get once she filed that lawsuit. Almost overnight, Daniel turned from a liar in the shadows to a man fighting for his reputation. He hired a slick lawyer, the kind who smiled with sharp teeth. He went on social media claiming Emma was just trying to get money out of him, calling her bitter and crazy. Some people believed him. Some didn't know what to believe anymore. But Emma stayed quiet and kept showing up at the courthouse, holding her head high, even when her knees felt like giving out. The truth was, Emma had nothing left to lose. Her family had stopped talking to her because they were tired of the drama. Her boss at the bakery had cut her hours because customers didn't want gossip with their coffee. Even her closest friend, Sarah, seemed distant now that things were getting serious. But at night, when the doubt crept in, Emma reminded herself of one thing: she had proof. And more than that, she had the truth on her side. What Emma didn't expect was the box. One afternoon, just before another hearing, she found a plain cardboard box outside her door. Inside were old photos, printed messages, and a note in shaky handwriting. It wasn't signed, but the words chilled her. "He's hiding more than you know." Emma's hands shook as she flipped through the papers. There were names she didn't recognize, places she'd never been, and hints that Daniel's lies weren't only about her, they were about other women too. Suddenly, it wasn't just about clearing her name anymore. Emma realized she might be fighting for women who didn't even know they'd been dragged into Daniel's twisted stories. But could she really handle what she was about to uncover? Emma spent that whole night sitting on her living room floor, surrounded by the contents of that mysterious box. Every photo, every old message, felt like another piece of a puzzle she didn't know she'd been solving. Some of the women in the pictures looked scared. Some looked like they didn't even know they'd been photographed at all. Emma's mind raced with questions. Who were they? Where were they now? And who left this box for her? The next day, she called Sarah, hoping to share what she'd found. But Sarah didn't answer. Emma felt a chill creep up her spine with Sarah, pulling away because she knew something too. Emma hated doubting her only friend, but now she trusted no one fully. At the next court hearing, Emma watched Daniel closely. He sat across the room, smirking at her like this was all some big game he'd already won. His lawyer kept throwing papers around, trying to bury her in legal talk she barely understood. But every time Emma felt small, she remembered that box in that note warning her that Daniel's secrets were bigger than anyone thought. One evening, Emma tried to track down one of the women she'd seen in the photos. After hours of searching, online she found a name Megan. Emma sent her a careful message, explaining who she was and what she'd found. Days passed with no answer, until one night her phone buzzed with a number she didn't recognize. Megan's voice trembled as she spoke, confirming Emma's worst fear. Daniel had lied about her too, ruining her reputation in another town before. He even met Emma. Emma realized this wasn't just defamation anymore. This was a pattern. A cruel game Daniel had played for years, moving from one woman to the next, leaving behind broken lives and stolen trust. But if she wanted to bring this darkness to light, she'd have to risk everything. Because Daniel wasn't going to let her win without a fight. Emma barely slept after that call with Megan. She felt like she was carrying the weight of every lie Daniel had ever told. Megan agreed to testify if she had to, but she was terrified. She warned Emma that Daniel had threatened her too, years ago, when she'd tried to expose him. Emma knew that if Megan was scared, there must be more women just like her women who were too afraid to come forward. As the final court date got closer, Emma felt the pressure closing in. She found strange cars parked near her apartment at night. Once someone banged on her door in the middle of the night but ran off before she could see who it was. Sarah finally called her back, whispering that she'd been followed home from work. Emma's stomach twisted. Daniel wasn't just fighting in court anymore. He was trying to scare her into silence. Emma started making copies of everything, every photo, every message, every piece of evidence. She hid them with people she trusted just in case something happened to her. She even thought about going to the police, but she didn't have any real proof that Daniel was behind the threats. All she had were the stories of broken women and a stack of secrets he'd tried so hard to bury. The night before she was supposed to testify, Emma sat in her car outside the courthouse, gripping the steering wheel so tight her hands ached. She watched the rain slide down the windshield and wondered if she was really strong enough to face Daniel in front of everyone. She thought about Megan, about the other women she might never find, and about how many more would suffer if she stayed quiet inside that courthouse, waited the man who ruined her name and tried to break her spirit. Tomorrow, she would stand in front of him with every truth she had left, but whether it would be enough to finally ruin him back, she didn't know yet. Emma barely stepped out of her car the next morning when her phone buzzed with an unknown number again. She almost ignored it, but something in her gut told her to answer. A man's voice came through, low and shaky. He didn't say his name at first, just asked if she was Emma. When she said yes, he whispered that he used to work with Daniel. He said he'd seen things, heard things, and he couldn't stay silent anymore. Emma's heart pounded so hard she thought she'd drop the phone. She asked him to explain, but he was scared, kept saying someone was watching him too. He told her to meet him later that night, away from town, near an old diner that had shut down years ago. Emma felt her throat go dry. It could be a trap. Daniel could be behind this too, but what if it wasn't? What if this was the piece that could finally destroy Daniel's lies for good? Inside the courthouse that day, Emma sat through hours of cold questions and sideways glances. Daniel kept flashing her that smug smile, like he knew something she didn't. She held her ground, spoke her truth, and handed over her proof. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop replaying that call. What if this man had the missing links, something that tied all the rumors, the threats, the hidden women together? When the court recessed for the day, Emma didn't even go home. She drove straight out of town as the sun dipped low behind the hills. The old diner looked like something out of a ghost story, with broken windows and weeds climbing up the walls. Emma parked her car and waited in the dark. clutching her phone like a lifeline. She kept glancing at the empty road, waiting for headlights, waiting to see if this stranger would show up, or if Daniel's reach was bigger than she'd ever imagined. The truth was closer than ever, but so was the danger. Emma sat in her car, her breath fogging up the window as she watched for any sign of movement near the diner. Minutes dragged by like hours. Her fingers tapped against the steering wheel, her mind spinning with everything that could go wrong. Just when she started to believe it was a setup, headlights cut through the dark. A beat-up old truck pulled up beside the diner, its engine coughing before it died completely. A man stepped out, shoulders hunched, eyes darting around like he expected someone to jump out at him. He looked older than Emma expected, tired and worn down by secrets. He climbed into the passenger seat of her car without saying a word. For a moment, they just sat there, staring at each other. Then, in a shaky voice, he told her everything. Daniel hadn't just lied about Emma. He'd built an entire web of blackmail and threats, targeting women and even some men who'd caught on to his scams. This man, his name was Rick, had helped Daniel cover his